So what led you to go to Rick Ware Racing?
I think there's a lot of uncertainty in the sport right now, in the world, really. Obviously, there's a charter agreement that's not finalized. There's a TV deal that's not finalized, and the election is next year. So I think for Matt and Colleague Racing and where they are, obviously he's a businessman and he needs to make business decisions. And I think we were close to doing a deal. I feel like it was a probable option. I feel like I had a few deals, and Rick just kept coming and calling and just gave me a really good deal. And I believe in what they've been able to do, especially with the RFK Alliance. Brad Keselowski and Steve over at RFK were very helpful in my decision process. They were convincing as well. So, yeah, I think with our alliance with RFK, Rick Ware, I think maybe on the surface it might look like an odd move, but there's a lot more depth to it than you might think.
Why sign now? Like, why not kind of wait out and see maybe what else falls?
Yeah, so great question. Unfortunately, it's obviously an awkward time to sign and release. This deal with Rick was done pretty much the week of Chicago, so probably a month ago at this point. I mean, it's been done for a while. But to get sponsors and to sell a certain car, you have to release that, right? So we had to put it out there that I was making the transition to RWR and that we could start to sell that sponsorship. If you are trying to look for sponsors and figure out, and Rick's trying to look for sponsors to make the business side of the sport go around, but you can't sell anything because you don't have anything signed, it's impossible. So for us, obviously, it was important for us to release that, to get all of our sponsors signed and ready for next year. And obviously, it wasn't, the best. I want to do the best for Matt Colleague and Chris Rice, and they've been really good to me for a long time. But for me, personally and selfishly, we had to release and sign pretty quickly.
Why sign with Rick so early and not maybe see if there were other organizations would have some movement?
Like I said, RFK and RWR wanted me, and they were very persistent, and I like that. And Rick gave me a really good opportunity and a really good deal that I kept laying in bed thinking about and wanting to take. And I think Rick, I don't want to speak for Rick, but I think back to where Spire was a few years ago. A lot of people were kind of wondering why Spire was in the sport, especially after our win together, and they just thought it was a money grab or whatnot. And I think Rick really wants to show people that he's here to win races, and they just won an NHRA race last week. Rick Ware in all forms of motorsports is a race-winning championship caliber team, and he wants to drive his NASCAR program to that. And signing me a full-time driver was, I think, one of his first steps after the RFK Alliance. And we want to change the narrative. Rick wants to change the narrative, and I think it was important for him, and I believe in Rick and what he's been able to do. I raced Custer all last week for 20th, and it's just a process. I get that, again, maybe on the surface it doesn't look like the best move, but I think come 3-5 years, especially like I mentioned, the charter agreement, the TV agreement, and just the political uncertainty of election being next year, there's a lot more to it than just the sports side of it, and I have to protect myself.
It's a multi-year deal, Justin. How big of a deal was that to have that security?
Well, honestly, Rick wanted to sign me for a lifetime, and I had to keep backpedaling. He wanted to sign me forever, and that's where Colleague was too. I called Chris and Matt after it went out, and they both told me they would have loved to stay with me forever, but the economics of the sport right now are just not in a position where a driver like me, who doesn't have a lot of sponsorship, can thrive. And Chris and Matt both told me that. They said, we'd love to have you forever. Chris mentioned yesterday that in an interview that it wasn't performance related. It's purely economics of where we are as a sport right now. And like I said, Rick and everyone at RWR was giving me a chance and an opportunity. And just for me as a future, I think it's something that we both can build around, and I'm really looking forward to it. I mean, I'm really so excited to step into this role and hopefully be what the team can build around.
Justin, would you sign with the RWR without the RFK Alliance?
I mean, that's a tough question. I think Brad was definitely part of some of the conversations and meetings that I had. I think without RFK, I didn't even realize when I went to RWR that they are in RFK's shop. I just thought I was going somewhere, and Rick sent me RFK's address, and I'm like, hey, that's not your race team. And I didn't even realize that it was in RFK. So that's a tough question. I think, Rick definitely has shown a lot of want to win and want to run better, and I think the RFK Alliance was the first step. Probably not, to be honest with you. But it's just the direction. I mean, you have to, if you don't have a manufacturer-backed team, you have to sign with someone like that. Same with Colleague, right? Colleague Racing is not a Chevy-backed team, tier 1 level. We're not a Hendrick, we're not a Trackhouse, we're not an RCR. So you have to align yourself with a larger organization to get some kind of data. So, for me, I'm in an alliance team now with Colleague, and it's the same with RWR. I'm going to an alliance team to a bigger organization. Obviously, I'm excited Ford gets a new body next year, so I think that'll be a good step in the right direction as well.
Will you be in the number? Will you be the number 15
No
or the
idea.
51?
No idea. Don't care.
Okay.
How do you go forward with your team now for the rest of the season?
We're fine. Everything's fine. Rick and or not Rick and Matt, but Chris and Matt were great on the phone. I didn't talk to them till after it was announced, and I called both of them, and they understood it. And like I said, they told me that they would love to have kept me forever, but the economics just weren't there, and that's just where we are. So I think I could have done another deal with Colin.